Let's go. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Projection Podcast. My name is Hector Flores. I am your host. Today we got a good buddy of mine, good friend of mine, and Joe Orloski. Joe, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Joe, I'm going to just kind of touch base a little bit on your resume so the viewers at home can kind of know what kind of background you came from. You're out of Las Vegas, Nevada. You were a 6th-round draft pick to, was it the Blue Jays?
Yes.
Blue Jays, and during that time, obviously you didn't get to play collegiate baseball, but you're a Arizona State commit. So now that people know you're kind of like from Vegas, man, how's that Las Vegas baseball out there?
Well, growing up, I think Vegas, during my era in Vegas, we had the most kids drafted per capita, and baseball was really good. I mean, it's kind of like different from Texas, where there baseball came first, probably basketball came second, football came last. I don't know how it is now, but yeah. It was a small town. I mean, it's not as big as it is today, but I mean, it was a small town. I mean, baseball was really good. And the crazy thing about the whole situation is I kind of played in the inner city Little League called Central Little League. If you ever been there, our field was across the street from Cashman Field.
What Cashman Field is that?
AAA. It was AAA. Back then was AAA for the Padres.
Okay.
They were called the Las Vegas Stars. I think now they're called the Las Vegas 51s. And really rough neighborhood. I mean, we probably had more bums watching us play baseball than we did actually parents.
Did you grow up in that area? That was the area?
No. Make a long story short, it was only Little League my parents could afford for all three of their kids to play.
And that was you and
you and my two older brothers.
2 older brothers?
Yeah.
Okay. What high school did you go
to? Green Valley High School in Henderson, Nevada. So,
like, as far as the Little League experience, was it kind of like for you just out there going enjoying it, or were you really like, was your dad kind of push you at wanting you to be?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
The cool thing about my Little League is we were a bunch of inner city kids that were really good. I mean, off of our 12-year-old all-star team, I think 9 went on to play professional baseball.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was a very competitive league. I mean, Ryan Ludwig, who ended up, I think, at UNLV, and then he got drafted pretty high. He ended up playing in the big leagues with the Cardinals for a while. I think he lives in Austin now. So, yeah, I mean, it was some good. You had Mo Washington, Deion Washington. He was drafted by the Pirates. You had Aaron He, who was drafted by the Mets. You had Blasdale, who was drafted by the Cardinals. You had Bobby Pierce, who was drafted by the Diamondbacks. I mean, the list kind of goes on and on. It was kind of a powerhouse.
So you were blessed to be able to play with talent at a very young age.
Yeah, but I would probably say our development was more of as our brothers were playing or as our friends were playing, probably the real baseball was probably over between the trees. Mm. We played a lot of sandlot baseball, so every time you went to the field, I mean, we had trees as bases. So, like, one tree would be probably 50 feet, the next tree would probably be 10 feet, and then the next tree would probably be 100 feet, and we would just play nonstop. And the funny thing is, my brother and all them still make fun of me. I broke my ankle on a tree.
Playing baseball?
Playing baseball because, you know, the roots come out. So when we were running, I hit the tree first base and rolled my ankle and broke my ankle. So now they always say that I broke my ankle running into a tree.
You think like as far as baseball playing at a youth level, like how do you get kids to love baseball? Like obviously for you think you loved it right from the start?
Well, my love was for basketball. Mm. I love playing basketball. It's just kind of baseball was what I was kind of good at. Mm. But I would think having older brothers help. But, I mean, we played sports just nonstop every day after
You're the
school.
youngest of the three?
Yes.
And your two brothers were pretty good as well?
My middle brother had a good arm. My older brother wasn't bad. But, I mean, I think the the grittiness, having two older brothers kind of put me over the edge.
So did you get to play with them in high school, your brothers?
No, they're a lot older.
A lot older.
5 and 6 years old.
And they all went to the same high school you did?
No, my one brother went to Bonanza. My other brother went to Cimarron. To make a long story short, I remember when my brother was at Cimarron, I was in 8th grade, and they used to kind of sneak me on the field to practice with them. Well, it kind of went sideways with my brother a little bit, and my brother ended up quitting and just starting to go to work. So then I decided to go to Bonanza, because I went to Bonanza for 2 years, and then I transferred to Green Valley my junior and senior year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like during your high school phase, when did you really start getting good? Do you think you were good right from the start as a freshman?
Well, the funny thing is, when I was 14 years old, I remember this like it was yesterday.
What is that? Is that 14? Is that 8th grade now or freshman?
Yeah, 8th grade.
8th grade?
Well, I was a little bit older. I was always a little bit older. My birthday was kind of in where I could be in either grade, so I was like 14.
You graduated a little earlier than everybody.
No, I graduated later.
Later?
Yeah, so I was 19 when I graduated. When I was 14, we were at Baker Field, I think. Kind of like, if you ever been to Vegas, it's kind of like, it was near, where's the what's that big building called now? The Stratosphere?
Stratosphere?
Yeah.
That's on the north side of the strip, right?
Yeah, we were about 2 blocks away, and I'll never forget it. I threw a pitch, and the ball went over the backstop. I couldn't raise up my arm. I was like, oh, man. So I think I blew out my arm. I don't know. Back then, who knows? They didn't do MRIs. You just went to go see a family doctor, and they just told you to take off for six months, and we'll see what happens. So I took 6 months off. That year, going into 15, I went from probably throwing 75, 80 miles an hour, and somehow that break or whatever happened, I came back, I was throwing like 85, 86. And then from that point, it just kind of took off.
Do you think it helped you? Obviously, it helped you taking a break off. Or
I guess. I don't know. Or I blew it out. And there's the thing about Nolan Ryan where he says that where it kind of calloused. Nolan Ryan said his kind of calloused when he was young, where, your arm, your ligament or whatever, it kind of, if you kind of tweak it or whatever and take some time off or whatever, I don't know. But for that point, but I never had elbow problems ever since. It was kind of weird.
What was the hardest you threw in high school?
I think I topped out at 92.
92?
But I think that was a different era.
Nowadays,
it'd probably be 95.
Yeah. So, Arizona State started getting interest in you your junior, senior
year? My junior year. After I went to Green Valley, Green Valley was a powerhouse. Green Valley was ranked number 2 in the nation my senior year. We were ranked 5 in the nation my junior year. And the funny thing is, and this is probably where most people don't understand, I threw 100 innings my freshman year. I threw probably 90 innings my sophomore year. When I transferred to Green Valley, I threw 7 innings.
Junior year,
I threw 7 innings.
Why'd you move there? Because of a better program? You got in trouble?
Yeah. So during my adolescence days, I probably wasn't the best human being, but
that's everybody.
It helped me grow. It helped me. But the best thing that ever happened to me was getting a little bit in trouble and having a mentor like Coach Fairless, who is one of the most knowledgeable baseball person, but he also put like a little fear in you where if I mess up, this will be my last chance. And he took me under his wing, and I'm fully grateful for him.
That was your coach at where?
At Green Valley.
At Green Valley.
Yeah, I'll never forget the first day I met him. Never forget it. He made me feel about that big.
Is he still around?
Huh?
You still around?
Oh, yeah, I call him every day.
Yeah. So 7 innings your junior year?
7 innings. It could have been 9. I think it was 7 or 9. Well, we were stacked. We had Tyler, who was like 92. You had Ian, who ended up at Hawaii. He was like 88. You had Doug Cole, who was drafted by the Diamondbacks, was about 88 to 91. And then you had Mike Donnini, who was a first rounder, who ended up his senior year throwing like 97, 98. So like the totem pole, I wasn't even on the radar at that time. And I went from playing shortstop to pitching almost every game to splitting time at first base, because that was the only way I can get in the lineup, batting seventh.
That was your senior year?
That was my junior year.
Junior year.
Yeah.
So
not once did I question the coach. Not once did I even worry about it, because at that time I was more worried about becoming a better person and doing what my coach wanted me to do. I think that's a lost art nowadays. Like, coaches don't have that authority anymore. Like, if you probably take it to this day and age, if a dude's only throwing 7 innings, what are they going to do? Transfer? Go somewhere else? I mean, that's kind of what the society that we're in now. But the only time my mom talked to the coach was, is he staying out of trouble? How's he doing in school? That was all my parents' concern was. Baseball kind of took a back seat. But that thing was just staying out of trouble and really just focusing on baseball. And then my senior year, I played third, batted in the 3-hole, and probably threw 90 innings.
90?
Yeah, but I signed to Arizona State throwing 9 innings in high school, my junior year.
So they saw the growth and potential.
Yeah, I mean,
you were around.
Yeah,
good people and good players.
Yeah, it was just at that time I needed to do what I needed to do.
Who else was interested in any other schools?
Oh,
I mean,
Miami. This was back in '98, so you had Miami was a powerhouse. Arizona State was a powerhouse. In '98, the year that I committed to them, they ended up in the championship at Omaha. USC, Hawaii. I mean, it was all pretty much Power 5 schools.
Why Arizona State?
Well, growing up in Vegas, Arizona State's kind of like that school.
How far is that from Vegas?
4 or 5 hours.
Oh, okay. It's not that far away.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you grew up in Texas, you have A&M in Texas. Well, we don't really have anything. And UNLV didn't really recruit a lot of Vegas guys back then. So Arizona State, Arizona, USC are kind of the schools, the Pac-10 back then, but now Pac-12. But those are the schools that kind of recruited us.
So that happened, and obviously were the pro scouts on you at the same time?
Well, yeah, I mean, the problem, our high school coach was at Valley High School before he went to Green Valley. I mean, we won 6 straight championships in a row. I think our high school coach won 12 out of 20 years. He was at Valley High School. He's had Tyler Houston, who was a number 2 pick overall. He had Greg Maddox.
Oh, that's where Maddox went?
He went to Valley High School, but same high school coach. So this guy was very well known in the city and really just knew how to get everything out of every player. And so every year we had a first rounder. I mean, Chad Hermanson was 11th pick overall, drafted in 96. I'm not sure if we had one in 97. No, I think Chad Hermanson might have been 94. Well, anyways, and then we had Dave Krenzel in 2000 and something. He was 11th pick overall. I mean, we had a first rounder every year.
And these are all guys out of high school.
Yes.
So you were around a lot of talent. So which brought in.
Well, the biggest thing was games were fun. Practice was hell. Every day you go to practice and look at the damn thing and be like, oh, God, man, it's going to be a long day. I mean, he'd probably be considered having, nowadays it'd probably be borderline child abuse. That's how bad it was.
But he had to be like that because the amount of talent they had on that team, those guys knew they were good.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be a certain way with people with players like that. You can't just let them do it. I mean.
He produced a lot of players.
He played too?
Yeah, I think he played at like Utah or something.
Oh, okay. Utah.
Yeah.
So now tell me a little bit about going through that transition from high school to professional baseball.
Oh, wow. It was an eye-opening. So I remember, the crazy thing is you got to remember there weren't cell phones. There's a different age. I mean, I'm kind of old, but I'm not that old. But technology over the years has just grew so much so fast. But I'll never forget, I graduated high school like June 9th. I was on a plane, I think, June 11th to Canada. I remember, I'll never forget it. So I had this piece of paper, itinerary, you're going to get here, whatever. And, you didn't have cell phones to check. So they just gave you a piece of paper in the mail. So I ended up going from high school 2 days later on an airplane going to Calgary, Canada. I'll never forget it. So I land, I get off, and there's these people with cowboy hats, kind of like Texas almost. Like Calgary's kind of like the Texas of Canada, I guess you would say. And we get off, and, I'm like, just, what do I do? Like, you had a calling card, so I had to go to a payphone, call my mom and dad, be like, I made it. All right, good luck. I mean, that was the extent of communication. So I get my bag, and I see two other guys. I'll never forget, it was Bob File and Jay Gibbons. Jay Gibbons actually played a little bit in the big leagues with the Baltimore, and then File made it with us with the Blue Jays. And they're standing there, and they're college guys. So I'm a high school kid, and these dudes are like jacked and big guys and, mature. And I'm like, oh, my God, what did I get myself into? Well, anyway, there's this big burly man with a sign, and I was like, oh, crap, man, this guy looks kind of scary. So ended up, we get all our bags, and we put our bags in our van, and we're all arguing who's going to sit up front. And they said, well, you're the youngest, you sit up front. And this is how dumb and naive everybody is. So we're driving, I look over, and I see like 110 on the speedometer, and this guy's just flying. I'm like, holy crap, dude, this dude's driving fast. So finally I got enough courage to say, hey, dude, like, what's the speed limit here? And he goes, 110, 120. And I was like, oh, man, you can drive as fast as you want. Well, I didn't know it was kilometers. It wasn't miles per hour. So I get there, and this team's already kind of established. So, I didn't know what was going on. I was scared out of my mind. These guys already went through spring training, most of them. I'm the new blood. I was the 6th round draft pick, first pitcher taken overall with the Blue Jays in the draft. So I already had kind of an X on my back a little bit, kind of people, all right, here's the new guy, the guy that everyone thinks is supposed to be this or that. And so I already had an X on my back a little bit. So go through practice, we kind of get there, and, and then it just took off from there. I mean, I had a really good year. I mean, I was by the end of the year, I was competing to have the most wins in the league, ERA. My walks were down. So, I mean, I had a pretty good year. And then from that point on, went to extended spring, where extended spring's like after the season, you kind of go for 6 weeks and you just work on specific things. And for that whole 6 weeks, all I did was work on a changeup. I had to get a changeup better. So they would make me throw 2 fastballs, 2 changeups, 2 fastballs, regardless of the count. And I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like, they're going to know what – they're like, who cares? Just you got to get it better. Well, after that season, my changeup got really good.
What did you have, 3 pitches?
Yeah, sinker, slider, changeup.
And obviously your fastball.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So the transition from high school, it took a little while, but after you kind of get there and kind of get going, it's just another day. The cool thing is you didn't have to go to school, and all you did was wake up and play baseball.
So how did you, as far as like, because obviously you got to learn how to pitch at that level because you're facing guys that know how to hit. Who, at a young age, I mean, I can only imagine you're 18, 19 years old playing professional baseball. You might not have the best knowledge as far as pitch selection. How did that play a role? As far as knowing how to pitch and what to throw in different pitches.
Well, the crazy thing is I was a sinker ball pitcher. So for me, learning to throw it down the middle was the hardest concept for me. And I remember one day we were in Mahoney Valley, and the brass came to town. Bruce Walton came to town. He goes, look, man, you're going to go out there and you're going to throw every fastball down the middle. And I was like, dude, you're crazy. I'm not doing that. He goes, well, if you need to. So just went out there and let my sink kind of work, threw it down the middle, ended up throwing like 7 innings, 80 pitches. The biggest thing is, I think at that level, is learning how to get people out in the strike zone. I mean, other than there's certain types of players that you know that are free swingers that you know, but then the object, I mean, really is being able to throw your off speed in the strike zone for outs. You're not going to get too many people chasing for the most part unless you're ahead in the count. It's learning how to use the plate to your advantage. And I remember Pat Henkin, who was a Hall of Famer, one day, because I was always kind of somewhat falling behind because I was always trying to nitpick outside with my sinker. Well, as the higher levels you go, they understand what a sinker does and they know what to do. So what they end up doing is they see a pitch that starts middle in, they're going to take it because they know it's going to end up, or they know that they're just looking for something over the plate, or they're looking for an off-speed pitch, or they have more of hitters have more of an idea and they go with more of a game plan where they're going to sit on a specific pitch or they're going to try to get you early in the count. But Pat Henkin told me to split the plate into thirds. So if you have 1, 2, 3, early in the game, you want to probably work the middle, inner thirds at the early in the game. And as the game goes on, you can start, if you establish that. So you got to establish that you can throw strikes. And then you'll start getting calls as the game progresses. The umpire will start giving you a little bit more. So he told me to start kind of middle in, and as the game goes, to start working out. And if you ever notice at the youth level or even at younger levels, what do most kids do? They start out and then they move in.
Back in.
Well, what happens is 2-0. Now I'm going to throw this fastball. Where if as a pitcher, if you kind of work to the middle part of the plate early in the count or early in the game, and then as time goes, start moving out. When you start getting ahead, start moving those pitches out.
You'll get that inch off the plate for
You'll get the inch off the plate. Not only that, you're ahead in the count. So now what's the hitter going to do? They're in the defensive mode.
Yeah.
So once I learned to kind of do that and start learning how to get early in the count, early, and not try to work out to in and work in to out, it kind of made a big difference.
And it took you to realize that after a few.
Yeah, it took me a long time to get my ass kicked to realize, okay, I got to change what I'm doing.
Who was that pitching coach?
Bruce Walton.
And that was your first year in the league?
Well, Bruce Walton was our pitching coordinator at the time. My first year, Les Stryker was my pitching coach. And Les Stryker was, I think, in 91. He pitched 2 games in the World Series, won the World Series with the Twins. He was a character. He just always told us, I mean, you learn a lot more from your peers than maybe some of your coaches. He just told us, look, don't get me in trouble. Just do what y'all need to do.
Really? He's doing his job.
Yeah. And then the next year I had Neil Allen, who was a big-time reliever for the Yankees. And then I had him for 2 years. And then I had God, what was his name? I've had.
I'm just thinking of the ways year in, year out, you have a lot of coaches, right? Because if you keep moving up the ladder,
yeah,
or coaches, guys come in and out,
yeah, like, coaches change on a normal.
You gotta be able to adapt to that.
Yeah, you got to be able to adapt to different coaches,
and
every coach has a different coaching style.
Yeah,
and you just have to learn to deal with it. And the one thing that I learned over the years, and I try to explain this to the kids a lot, no one cares about your feelings. Not one coach cared about how I felt. No one cares about your feelings. It's your job to go out there and kind of do your job.
Well, I think at that level, it's a little different because they don't care. They're doing their job. They're not there to like you.
No, they're there to produce players and move on.
I
mean, you build good relationships, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, the turnover rate, next year there's new guys. Next year there's new guys. Next year there's new guys.
Yeah, I think I heard somebody say it the other day. It was like it's very, very hard to make it to the big leagues, but it's even harder to stay up there.
Well, nowadays, I think it's even harder. I was having a conversation, I forget who it was the other day. I mean, everyone, it was Zach Dotson. everyone now is throwing 92 to 98. Well, there's 7 other dudes in the minors that do the same thing.
Same thing.
So, I mean, if you probably look at, I haven't really looked at it closely, but if you probably look, there's more dudes making their pro debut probably now than probably 10, 15 years ago. Because guys actually kind of stuck. Now it's, hey, let's give this guy a chance. He's throwing hard. If he blows out, he blows out. If he does good, not, well, bring him. I mean, if you kind of look on the TV, there's so many dudes making pro debuts now.
Yeah, they're all young guys.
Mm-hmm.
Mid-20s.
Yep.
How many years did you play professional?
9.
9. You played a few years of indie ball too, right?
Yeah, I played 2 years of indie ball.
I feel like the indie ball route is just getting more popular these days because a lot of guys don't want to give it up, but they're good enough to keep playing.
Yeah, I mean, indie ball is good. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of guys. I mean, the good thing about indie ball is you're around a bunch of guys that want to be there, and they want to play hard, and they all have the ultimate goal of getting back in affiliated ball. I mean, it's kind of the same common goal. There's a lot more team unity, I think, in indie ball. Whereas, you know, an affiliated ball is kind of like more about yourself. There's the team atmosphere is probably not really there, but in indie ball, the guys are a lot closer. I mean, you're playing for one goal, and really, in indie ball, you're playing for a championship.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of all you're kind of there for and trying to get out. But, I mean, it's a little bit it's not too bad. It's actually kind of fun.
So after your indie ball years, was it tough to hang it up? I mean, you've been doing it since you were a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we all come to the realization that, you know, this isn't worth it anymore. I think the hardest part, and it's going to be kind of hard to explain, but to get back into a normal kind of lifestyle. I mean, that was probably one of the hardest adjustments that I made. And if you talk to a lot of ex-pro athletes who've done it for a long time, the transition of an everyday life, I mean, as a minor leaguer, big leaguer, whatever, I mean, you play till 11 o'clock, you go home, you sleep in, you get up, you go to the field about noon, and that's all you do. Where, you know, after playing, you actually have to get up, go to work.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have families and you have all this. It's the adjustment of going from that to normal life was really hard for about a year.
What'd you do after? What was the first thing you did after you got done playing?
Started coaching.
Did you? You got into it right away?
Right away.
And this was where were you living at the time?
I was living here in San Antonio.
Why'd you move here?
Just some things along the way that brought me here.
Brought you here. And you've been coaching for how long now?
Well, I was coaching a little bit off and on since I moved here. From like 2002, but really officially in like 2008, 2007.
And that's when you, who was the first person you met down here as far as baseball related?
Ed Trevino.
Ed Trevino.
You know Ed Trevino?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still around?
He's probably one of the, I don't know if he's still around, but he was probably one of the first guys that I met when I first moved here.
Is that who you started coaching with?
With him and Ben Van Ryan.
Ben Van Ryan, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a big name down here too.
Yeah.
When did you meet Cedric?
In 2006, 2005.
How'd y'all meet?
We were both doing lessons at the Sandlot.
Where's the Sandlot at?
The Sandlot used to be over there by McAllister Park.
Okay.
You know where Charlie's Bar is?
Yeah.
It was like across the street from there in this little warehouse.
And then from there, you kind of stuck with him, and
yeah, me and him became best friends, and man, that was good running right there, man. We clicked, and we just started kind of coaching together, and there's not a better person to be around than Cedric Harris.
Yeah, I agree. Like, so during this time, obviously, man, it's because life after baseball, it's tough.
That's the hardest thing.
It's even for me. I mean, I only played collegiate baseball. I didn't even play professional, but even for me, not playing, it was. I mean, the depression and the stages, like, what do I do in my life now? Because you've been doing it since you were 5 years old.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's out the door, and it's like, how do you how do you interact? Like, who am I going to be now?
Yeah.
Like, your identity is just gone.
Well, that's probably the biggest thing, and that's probably one of the things is you think your identity is a baseball player. And it didn't take me till probably about probably 10 years ago to realize I'm a person. Mm-hmm. That's baseball was just a part of my life. It wasn't who I was. But as a young age and a young guy, you just think, oh, that's my identity. I'm a baseball player. Everyone looks at me as a baseball player. A lot of times people don't get to know the real person because they always identify somebody by what they're doing, rather than who they are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you definitely found your calling in coaching.
Oh, I hope.
But now that you do select baseball, we can kind of get into that a little bit, as far as, because you've been around some good athletes, some good players, and you put them through the process of college and the recruiting process. You've been a lot of good mentor to a lot of these players here in town. What is one advice, I guess, you can give to players that are trying to play at the college level?
Work hard. The biggest thing is find somebody that you trust, find somebody that you think has got your best interests in heart, and trust the people that you put your kid around. I think the biggest thing is everyone's out there. Some people are out there for not the better good of the kid or player, and more better good of what it's going to look like for themselves. And I think, I don't really want to put this on air, but, we had a kid a few years ago who's at a pretty good university now. And when this kid was 12 years old, if you told me he was probably going to play college baseball, I would have told you were crazy. But as time went on, but the one thing that I noticed, the parents didn't interfere very much. They didn't interfere very much. They kind of just said, look, man, he's under your wing. You do what's best for my child. So as time went, he started growing. I remember, for 1 year, we had to put him on the second team, so-called, second team. But if you would notice how many kids from a second team go on to play collegiate baseball, it's crazy. Well, 1 year I told his parents, I said, look, we're going to put him on this team. He's going to bat higher in the lineup, but ultimately he's going to be on this team to become a leader. He needs to lead. He needs to be in uncomfortable situations. He needs to learn how to kind of put a team on his back a little bit. Whereas if he was on the other team, he would have just been another guy. And I think that was the turning point. And his parents said, look, man, do whatever you need to do. We trust you, and do what you think is right for our kid. And then the next year, he just took off. He ended up going to Duke.
Well, there's a lot of parents out there that they don't understand that. They want it now.
Well, yeah, everybody wants it now. Everybody wants it where, we're in an instant world now. Mm-hmm. Like, everything's about, if you needed to find something or Google something, it's right there. So the thing about youth baseball now, it's today. It's today. They don't know that it takes a process. It took me 6 weeks to kind of produce a changeup, and I got my ass lit up. But the process, I think, is being eliminated at a youth baseball, because if you're on an average team, a AAA team or a AA team, so to speak, and you're not a major team, that good player is going to leave to go be on a major team and kind of probably be on a team that's probably not as coached as well, but they win baseball games. Mm-hmm. So the development of athletes, I think, nowadays is not what it used to be because of the instant we have to win today.
Can you talk about a little bit about, as far as the development, because that's why you play for somebody that knows the game, that's been there, has good background. Can you talk about the development as far as being with someone under your wing that knows the game, knows it takes process, for someone who's out there just to win?
I mean, there's so much that goes into it. I mean, for me, from a pitching standpoint, is you'll go to a youth level game, 11 or 12 or 13, probably 10, 11, 12, and you see a lot of curveballs being thrown. And I'm not against throwing curveballs, but in order to pitch at a high level, you have to be able to pitch with a fastball.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is, I think from a developmental standpoint, is we're throwing curveballs at such an early age, and it works. Don't get me wrong, it works, and it's going to win baseball games. But the learning of being able to command a fastball. So there's a difference between control and command. Well, a lot of kids have control, but they don't have command. Command is pretty much putting the ball where you want it, when you want it, and being able to elevate a fastball and to bring the fastball down. The hardest thing I think in pitching is going from a fastball down and elevating a fastball and then being able to locate that fastball back down on the very next pitch. If you can't get people out at a young age with a fastball, you won't pitch at a high level. And I think what happens is guys start throwing curveballs at such an early age because it works and it wins baseball games. But they don't ever learn how to pitch with a fastball. I mean, I didn't throw a breaking pitch until I was 16 years old, and I'll never forget it. All I did was throw fastballs all the way up until I was 16. And Eric Ludwig, who he was with Brian Ludwig's brother, Eric Ludwig, who was a pitcher in the big leagues for the Mets. One day we were playing in this, I don't know, it was just like pickup league or whatever, and we were just all out there, and he was behind the pitcher's mound. And I was just throwing fastballs. And he goes, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 16." And I knew him because he played in our little league, but he was a lot older. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm never thrown one. He's like, "All right, grip it like this and just do this." And sure enough, first pitch, I mean, it was filthy. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was pretty good. And ever since then, I had an off-speed pitch. It took one pitch, one time, and I had a slider from that point on. So I think what helped me was learning how to get people out with my fastball, elevate, lower it, And I think from a youth age, you have to learn to pitch with fastballs. And yes, you're going to lose a game, probably one or two, or if I would have threw a curveball there, I would have got the guy out. But if you can't pitch with a fastball, I personally don't think you can pitch at a high level.
Yeah, and it's a process.
It is a process.
You got to understand mentally how the mind works, and it goes a long way.
I mean, you were a hitter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So from a hitting standpoint, what do you think?
Oh, it's one of the hardest things to do. You have to really understand. Not only that, you got to understand what type of hitter you are.
Right.
Once you understand that, it becomes a little easier on what you can do and what you can do. It's not up there just swinging. You're working on your craft.
You're having an approach.
Mm-hmm. For me, it was more. I was a right side guy, more top to bottom, put the ball on the ground and run. And once I understood that, I started becoming a player.
Okay.
But I mean, it goes a long way because parents they don't understand that. They want the end result to be good, but the good ones, like you said, the parents said, "Hey, he's your guy. Do whatever you got to do with him. Chew him out. Teach him what you got to teach him. We're just kind of sitting back and letting you do your job." I think it's really beneficial for the kid, man, because there's not a lot of parents that are like that these days.
No, there's not a lot of parents. Well, I think social media has kind of put into play. Everyone nowadays is, my son committed to this, my son's committed to that, or vice versa. I mean, it's just gotten to the point where social media has made it where it's instant. What's today? And there's no process in it. There's
a lot of people out there that say they've done this, they've done that, and in reality, they haven't. So for me, I mean, I want to know who's in front of my kid, who's teaching them what are you teaching them? I want to ask questions. What do you think is the best way for a parent coming in and they don't know anybody, but they really involved in baseball? You think the best route is just ask around and see who's kind of the in and out?
Well, I mean, you can ask around is probably one, but I would probably say have some conversations with the coach that's actually going to coach your child.
Yeah.
And kind of see where he's at. and kind of see what he's done or what he's doing. So, I mean, that would probably be the biggest thing is find out what his background is, find out what he's done in the past. I mean, those are things that you probably want to look into, because you can be on a winning team and your son necessarily isn't getting the fundamentals that he needs to become better.
Real quick, man. So at a young age, how important is it for these kids to love baseball and not really be on them so hard? And because for parents out there, it's their dream, right? For a kid to play at a high level and play D1 baseball, college baseball, professional baseball, but in reality, it's not for everybody.
Well, you just hit it on the head. College baseball. That's the only reason why some people are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I don't think I ever thought about playing college baseball. I mean, I dreamed a little bit about playing professional baseball, but I played it because it was so much fun. I played basketball because it was fun. I didn't have any aspirations of doing it. I just knew I didn't know any better. And I think nowadays parents are so focused on the end results that we lose, and they lose that gap in between of, if your kid is not very good but loves playing it, who cares? He's going to learn so much in those years.
Yeah.
There's more to life than baseball. There's more to life than basketball. There's more to life than everything. It's becoming a good person and learning values along the way. It's the biggest thing is, why would you want to do it if you didn't love it?
Mm-hmm.
And why would you want to do it if it wasn't fun? So if kids don't learn to love it, it would be really hard. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The funniest thing is a little bit of a personal thing is we had this Halloween costume scrimmage.
Yeah.
And it was the 10-year-olds versus the 7-year-olds. And my son's 7 years old. The 7-year-olds had the time of their lives. No one was coaching. They were just out there. The older boys were being so nice to them. They had, and they were just playing sandlot baseball. At 6:30 in the morning, my son comes and wakes me up, and somehow on Net or Amazon Prime, we have the MiLB package. Somehow he went in there and had a Blue Jays game. He comes in at 6:30 and says, "Dad, the Blue Jays are on. Will you wake up and watch it with me?"
Oh.
And that was the first time that he's gone out of his way for that. Why? Because he had so much fun the night before. So I was like, wow, man, that's pretty cool. So I think more and more, if the kid really gets involved and really, I mean, isn't that what you want?
Mm-hmm.
And trust me, he's got a long way to go. But that right there made me appreciate that night before.
Well, I think if those kids are really having that much fun, I mean, you're doing a good job. Parents, coaches, anyone around them is doing a good job, because you don't want to ruin a kid's potential career just because they're hating it and their coach is getting mad at them, or because it's hard. You got to deal with failure. When you're telling an 8-year-old kid you got to deal with failure at 8 years old because you're playing baseball, that's hard. You got to have someone right by them to explain to them it's okay to fail, because it's going to happen. We
have a 6-year-old playing on our 9U team, and first couple weeks, every time he would fail or something happen, he'd get teary-eyed. And as time went on, I explained to his parents, look, the first thing we have to do is get him to understand that it's okay. And finally, a couple weeks later, he made an error. He didn't cry. I was like, yes, he finally did it. Didn't cry. Got a hit that game. I mean, this kid's 6 years old playing 9U. I mean, who would expect a 6-year-old to get a hit in a 9U game? And now, as time goes on, he's making plays. He's getting more quality at bats, and he's actually having fun. And that was a big victory for that child to overcome that, because he would cry every time something bad would happen. Now he just doesn't care. And his game has gotten better because of it.
You learn how to deal with that emotions.
Yeah, you got to be able to deal with emotions. If you can't deal with emotions, it makes this game really hard.
Yeah, I agree. Man, well, we're about to wrap it up here, man. Is there anything else you would like to say about this game? Any feedback for people that are watching or anybody who's playing?
I think probably the biggest thing is this game will beat you down. The biggest thing is it takes a family or parents to pick their son up. And I think parents, kids get in the car, they get, why do you do this? You went 0 for 4, da-da-da. I think a parent needs to switch that role. The kid knows. He's got coaches. He's got everything that he needs. He already knows he screwed up. Most times, most kids probably know more than the parent knows, depending on how the age. He already knows he failed.
Yeah.
So as a parent, I think it's your job to be like, dude, it's okay. I mean, if you look at some of these success stories about people on TV about their parents, what do they always say? My parents always supported me. My parents always supported me. It's okay to tell your kid it's okay when he does bad. And I think we want to harp on, well, you went 0 for 4. You don't think he knows he went 0 for 4? Of course he knows.
Yeah.
He's not looking for...
He's not trying to be.
No, he's looking for to get in the car and be like, all right, man. And if you start kind of flipping that script, they are going to start learning how to work hard.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are going to make the choice that I need to get better.
Yeah. Goes a long way.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, every kid who plays sports, what's the one thing they want to please? They want to make their mom and dad happy.
Yeah.
It's the only reason.
So I did it.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it.
Right. But at the end of the day, kids are just trying to make their parents happy.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Joe, man, I appreciate you coming into the studio and
I'll be back
and talking.
I'll be back.
Not only that, man, you've been a good friend of me, and
well, I appreciate you.
We go back with some good memories, man.
Oh yeah, we've had some battles on the field, coaching against each other. We've had some moments in offices talking about kids. I mean, it's been a really fun time over the years.
Nah, and believe it or not, man, you've been a mentor to me as well.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you more than you appreciate me. Trust me.
Oh, this is I'm kind of happy for you, and hopefully this thing takes off.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Guys, make sure to like and subscribe the Projection Podcast. A lot more to come. Thank you, guys. So, Joe Orloski.
Was that good or bad?
That was a great show.
Are you sure?
Yeah. That was good. That was good stuff.
When are you going to have me back?